The strength of walking away. Stoic meditation for deep inner peace, self-respect, and emotional freedom. Welcome. Settle in. Wherever you are right now, allow yourself to become still. Let the world continue without your attention for a while. Let its noise remain outside. Let its demands wait. Let its judgments pass. Let its urgency dissolve. For this moment, there is nowhere you need to rush, no one you need to impress, nothing you need to prove. Just breathe. Take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. Again, in and out. Now listen carefully, because tonight we are meditating on a kind of strength that the world almost never celebrates. A quiet strength, a restrained strength, a mature strength. A strength that does not shout, does not chase, does not force, and does not beg. It is the strength of walking away. Not because you are weak, not because you are incapable of fighting, not because you have nothing left to say, but because you have finally become wise enough to know that not every battle deserves your energy, not every conflict deserves your spirit, not every person deserves your loyalty, and not every place deserves your presence. There comes a moment in life when continuing is no longer noble, when staying is no longer love, when enduring is no longer strength, when trying harder is no longer wisdom, when loyalty becomes self-betrayal, when patience becomes self-erasure, when hope becomes attachment to pain. And when that moment comes, the Stoic does not collapse in bitterness. The Stoic sees clearly, and then the Stoic walks away. Tonight, we will reflect deeply on what it means to walk away, not in anger, not in pride, not in impulsive escape, but with dignity, clarity, self-command, and peace. We will speak about walking away from disrespect, walking away from toxic relationships, walking away from arguments that poison the soul, walking away from the need to be understood by everyone, walking away from the compulsion to prove yourself, walking away from your former self, walking away from fear, walking away from illusions, walking away from anything that asks you to abandon your inner peace in exchange for temporary acceptance. Because there is a kind of freedom that only arrives when you stop gripping what is already harming you. There is a kind of peace that only appears when you stop standing at doors that were never meant to open for you. And there is a kind of power that is born only when you finally say, enough. Not with drama, not with rage, but with stillness. Enough. The world often misunderstands walking away. It thinks walking away means defeat. It thinks departure means failure. It thinks leaving means you could not handle it. It thinks silence means you had no answer. It thinks distance means weakness. But the Stoics knew something most people never learn. The person who can walk away from what disturbs the soul possesses greater strength than the person who remains entangled just to preserve appearances. Anyone can react, anyone can shout, anyone can cling, anyone can beg. Anyone can return to what wounds them because they fear emptiness more than suffering. But to leave with discipline, to choose peace over chaos, truth over fantasy, dignity over attachment, that is rare. That is strength. And perhaps this meditation finds you at exactly the right moment. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you are standing at the edge of some inner decision. Maybe there is a person in your life who takes more than they give. Maybe there is an environment that drains your spirit. Maybe there is a dream you have outgrown but are afraid to release. Maybe there is an old version of yourself you know you can no longer remain. Maybe part of you already knows what must end, but your heart is still catching up to what your soul has understood. If that is where you are tonight, then stay here with me. You do not need to force clarity. You do not need to rush the truth. We will walk through it slowly. Because one of the hardest lessons in life is this: not everything is meant to be held on to. Some things enter your life to teach you detachment. Some people enter your life to teach you boundaries. Some disappointments arrive to teach you self-respect. Some losses arrive to restore your direction. And some endings are not punishments. They are permissions. Permissions to stop abandoning yourself. Permissions to stop fighting for what does not fight for you. Permissions to step out of confusion and into reality. Permissions to honor your peace. You have been taught, perhaps since childhood, that goodness means staying, that kindness means giving more, that loyalty means enduring longer, that love means sacrificing endlessly, that maturity means tolerating what hurts you, that strength means never leaving. But this is not wisdom. This is conditioning. True goodness does not require self-destruction. True kindness does not demand that you become cruel to yourself. True loyalty is not slavery. True love is not humiliation. True maturity is knowing the difference between patience and permission. And true strength is not merely the power to remain, it is also the power to release. To release what insults your spirit, to release what repeatedly dishonors your worth, to release what cannot be repaired without your constant self-sacrifice, to release what was only meant for a season, to release the fantasy that if you suffer enough, someday you will finally be valued. This is why walking away is so difficult. Because walking away is rarely just a physical action. It is an emotional separation, a spiritual disentangling, a psychological awakening, a confrontation with reality. And reality is often painful before it becomes freeing. To walk away, you must often accept truths your heart did not want to hear, that they may never understand you, that they may never apologize, that they may never become who you hoped they would be, that your effort may never be matched, that your loyalty may have been misplaced, that your suffering will not magically transform someone else into a better person, that some doors remain closed no matter how pure your intentions are. This hurts, of course it hurts. Stoicism is not about pretending pain does not exist. It is not emotional numbness. It is not coldness. It is not the denial of human feeling. Stoicism is the courage to face truth without collapsing beneath it. It is the discipline to let pain teach you rather than define you. It is the art of remaining inwardly steady while life reveals what is and is not yours to keep. So let us begin with the first principle. Not everything deserves your presence. One of the deepest mistakes people make is assuming that because something has invited their attention, it deserves their involvement. But it does not. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Not every provocation deserves engagement. Not every opportunity deserves acceptance. Not every person deserves continued access to you. Your presence is valuable. Your mind is valuable. Your emotional energy is valuable. Your time is your life. And every moment you give to chaos is a moment you cannot give to growth, wisdom, peace, or purpose. The Stoics understood that attention is one of the most sacred forms of currency. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. So if you give your attention to petty conflict, your life becomes conflict. If you give your attention to resentment, your life becomes resentment. If you give your attention to those who manipulate, demean, confuse, or exhaust you, your inner world becomes a battlefield. This is why walking away is not passive. It is an active act of stewardship over your soul. You are saying, I refuse to feed this with my life force any longer, and that matters. Because many people remain trapped not because they are physically imprisoned, but because their attention has been captured. Captured by what someone said, captured by what someone withheld, captured by imagined conversations, captured by the need to explain themselves, captured by the desire to be vindicated, captured by the fantasy of finally being understood. But you do not need to attend every war you are invited to. You do not need to defend yourself before every misunderstanding. You do not need to stand trial in the court of other people's immaturity. The moment you understand this, you become harder to disturb. And when you become harder to disturb, you become freer. Freedom is not only the absence of chains, it is the refusal to hand your mind to what does not deserve it. Walking away from the need to be understood. This is one of the hardest forms of walking away, because many people are not really attached to the person or the conflict itself. They are attached to the hope that one day they will finally be seen correctly. They want the other person to understand what they meant, to recognize how much they cared, to admit the pain they caused, to see the effort that was overlooked, to acknowledge the truth. And this desire is human, it is deeply human. To want to be understood is natural. But the Stoic asks a difficult question. What if understanding never comes? What if they remain committed to their version of you? What if they prefer the story in which they are innocent and you are the problem? What if they cannot see clearly because doing so would require them to confront themselves? Will you remain chained to their blindness forever? Will you keep returning, explaining, justifying, clarifying, reopening old wounds, spending your peace just to persuade someone? Who benefits from misunderstanding you? At some point, wisdom says, enough. Let them misunderstand. Let them reduce you. Let them tell themselves whatever story protects their ego. You do not need to live inside their interpretation. You do not need universal understanding to possess inner truth. You do not need permission to move on. You do not need everyone to agree with your heart before you protect it. Walking away from the need to be understood is one of the purest forms of liberation. Because when you no longer need every person to validate your reality, you become grounded in something deeper. Your conscience, your virtue, your direct knowledge of how you have lived. That becomes enough. And when that becomes enough, you stop exhausting yourself in unwinnable trials. The cost of staying too long. There is a cost to everything, a cost to speaking, a cost to silence, a cost to leaving, a cost to staying. Many people obsess over the pain of leaving and ignore the pain of remaining. But staying too long has its own consequences. Stay too long in disrespect, and you begin to normalize it. Stay too long in confusion, and you begin to doubt your own judgment. Stay too long where you are diminished, and you begin to forget what healthy peace feels like. Stay too long trying to convince someone of your worth, and eventually you start negotiating against yourself. Stay too long in misalignment, and your soul grows heavy. Stay too long in a place you have outgrown, and your spirit begins to suffocate. This is why walking away is sometimes an act of rescue. Not rescue from the world, rescue from self-abandonment. Because every time you remain in something that repeatedly dishonors you, a part of you learns the wrong lesson. A part of you learns that this is acceptable, that this is what love looks like, that this is what friendship requires, that this is what ambition demands, that this is what life is. But it is not. And sometimes the greatest danger is not that someone is hurting you. It is that you have become so accustomed to being hurt that you no longer recognize peace when it appears. The Stoic refuses this numbness. The Stoic remains awake. The Stoic watches carefully. And when staying begins to violate dignity, the Stoic leaves. Walking away is not quitting. Let us make this clear. Walking away is not always quitting. Sometimes it is the opposite. Sometimes walking away is the first moment you truly stop surrendering. The world praises persistence, and persistence is valuable. But persistence without wisdom becomes self-punishment. Determination without discernment becomes stubborn suffering. Loyalty without boundaries becomes exploitation. Hope without truth becomes delusion. The Stoic does not worship persistence for its own sake. The Stoic asks, Is this still aligned with reason, virtue, and reality? If yes, continue. If no, release. That is not quitting. That is wisdom. Walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom, it is self-respect. It is the quiet courage to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and dignity over the endless need to be accepted by what was never meant for you. Some doors are not meant to be forced open. Some battles are not meant to be fought forever. Some people are not meant to walk with you into the next chapter of your life. And that is not your failure. That is life making room for something truer. So tonight, release the weight you were never meant to carry. Release the need to explain yourself to those who refuse to understand. Release the pain of staying where your spirit has already outgrown. Release the fear that letting go means losing. Sometimes letting go is how you finally win. Sometimes walking away is how you return to yourself. Let this be your reminder. You do not have to chase what drains you. You do not have to beg for what should be given freely. And you do not have to remain where your peace is constantly under attack. Choose yourself. Choose stillness. Choose the life that asks you to stand in your truth, not shrink in your fear. And if this message found you at the right time, then carry it with you into the days ahead. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves your presence. And not everything you lose is truly a loss. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Thank you for being here. Take a deep breath. Move gently through your day or night. And remember, real strength is often silent. If you enjoyed this meditation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and return for more Stoic reflections on peace, discipline, and inner strength. Until next time, stay calm, stay grounded, and protect your peace.